Join us on the Recovery Matters podcast, where we celebrate the power of resilience and explore multiple pathways to recovery.
Well, Randy, welcome to the Recovery Matters podcast. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Phil. Thanks for having me on. This is great. My name is Randy Anderson, and I'm a person living in long-term recovery. And what that means to me is I haven't used any alcohol, drugs, or mood-altering substance since January 9th, 2005. So 18 years. Yeah, that's me.
Sounds like you said that before.
A few times.
Yeah.
Few thousand times probably, but yeah.
You're a recovery coach, you're a recovery coach professional, a recovery coach professional facilitator. You have built a career and a company right here, Bold North Recovery, around your ability to facilitate training. By all accounts, you're an outstanding trainer. But tell me a little bit about your addiction history, what life was like.
I try, and you, Phil, I love when I hear you talk how we always try to spin the story to the recovery side, right?
Yes.
Like, right? Like, and I like to do that too, but I think it's important also. I think for me, the part that I like to talk about when I'm asked a question like that is people ask you all the time, like, what was the moment or epiphany when you decided maybe recovery was something you'd give a shot at, right? And this is after, so I was raided by a DEA task force and I was thrown in jail and multiple charges and all that fun stuff. But the one thing what the criminal justice system did do for me is they offered me treatment. Like, my story isn't that different than a lot of people. Just I got a law enforcement intervention is what started my journey. But the first time I went to treatment, to get help, I really said, they let me out of jail, of course, to go to treatment. I didn't even know what treatment was. I said, sign me up. Like, if anything to get me out of jail, I don't care. I'll do it. Right. And I figured I'd just go there. I was enrolled in a 60-day outpatient program. And I said, I can do anything for 60 days. Like, I'll fake it until I make it. Right. Yeah. That sounds so good to say until you actually try to do that. And I was about 30 days into treatment the first time, and a vehicle of mine got stolen by, guess what, a guy I met in treatment that I was friends with from my past, and I thought I could trust him, right? So one of those. So I decided I had a pass from the treatment center, and I was going to go. I took a cab home, and I didn't have any place to go, no one to see. I'm stuck by myself. And so I did what people like me do. I just got some drugs and started using and got caught and got in a lot of trouble and sent back to jail and whatnot. And I always say it took me 10 months to complete a 60-day outpatient program. So I needed 10 months of help, right? Anyways. And so, but I got, when the time I came back the last time from jail to the treatment center, when they were going to put me in the residential program, they have, everyone that comes in has to do a UA, right, or urine analysis to see what's in your system and And they took me, this guy named Mark Lindgren, he was the primary counselor for the residential program. The guy was about 6'9", 300 pounds. He had done 9 years in Faribault State Prison here in Minnesota. He had a reputation. Mark was known as the enforcer. And this was back in early 2000s, and they were still one of the only therapeutic communities left probably in the United States, but called Eden House, which had quite a reputation. And but Mark takes me into this little small bathroom, UA bathroom, to get my UA. He starts telling me what a stupid mother effer I am. And I can't believe because I brought drugs back to the sober home and I did all that stuff. And he says, I can't believe you brought drugs to a sober home. You got high here. You got federal charges pending. You have a state case pending. Are you just an idiot, right? He's just ripping me. But he said something that I'll never forget, which really changed that was the moment. He said, I don't know why I'm wasting my breath, because this recovery shit isn't for you and you can't do it. And little did he know, and little did I know, that what he did is he directly pushed my father button that day, because he said I couldn't do it. And I realize now, after treatment and therapy, that I had lived my entire life up to that point trying to please my dad. Like, I was never good enough. My dad is the kind of dad that said things like second places for losers, like, so either you win first or you're no one, right? Anyways, and I'd never done anything. I never heard my father up to this point in my life tell me he's proud of me. He's never said he loved me. Just a really tough dad, right?
Do you think he said that intentionally to
Oh yeah.
it was definitely a reverse psychological ploy?
So no doubt in my mind, Mark now is retired, and I'm actually good friends with my original counselor, counselor. And I asked him many years later. I said, "Why would you do that to anyone? like that's a pretty dangerous slope." And now, now I went to school and I'm a counselor, and I don't know if I'd ever have the guts to do that to someone, because what could happen is the other way, right?
Yeah.
And Mark said to me, he goes, "You're Andy, you know what? You're right." And I've only done that. He was a counselor for 35 years. Because I've done that 3 times in my 35 years of being a counselor. The first time I did it, the guy stayed in treatment for about 2 weeks. He left the program. He came back to the program, found recovery. The second time I did that, it was a little younger person, a younger man. He got really mad. He stormed out of the place, left, overdosed, and died that night.
Whoa.
The third time I did it was you. And he says, I think it turned out pretty good. Anyways, so yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'd ever have the courage, the guts, the smarts, maybe whatever you want to call it, to say that to someone, because I'm too afraid it would go the wrong way.
Well, I think it's you have to have a strong intuition. That's your art of counseling, your art of coaching, where you have that tool in your belt, right? But how often you use it, you might not ever use it, but you have it there if you're called to use it in a certain situation. Tell me about your journey in recovery towards advocacy.
Well, so I got fired from a job for the first time in my life so I got out of prison in 2010. I got released from paper in 2011. I went to prison in 2005. So I did 60 months total behind bars. But when I got out of prison, I went back into sales, which was really easy for me. I did home improvement sales. I'm a pretty good talker. And with the criminal record, you're really, even as a white cisgender male, I'm really restricted on who will hire me and where I can work, and you know that. You deal with people like myself all the time. And so I took a job. The home improvement industry, at least in Minnesota, and I'm guessing across the United States, they really don't care what your background is if you can sell stuff, right? They'll give anyone a job if you can make the company some money, right? And I was pretty good at it. And so, so the first place I worked at out of prison was a real shady company, but they paid good and I made a ton of money there, but eventually I couldn't take it. I was like, the owner didn't care. He's the kind of guy that would sell a bag full of poop to his mom if he could make money off of it. Right. And so that didn't sit well with me. So I left that job. I went to work for another place, a better, husband and wife ownership, a better company. And I got into a little bit more of a leadership role. I was training people, and I was pretty good with electronics. I was setting up emails for new sales guys and stuff. Well, the owner and I ended up getting in an argument one day, and he fired me. And I was like, I've never been fired from a job in my life. And I thought it really shocked me. And I did collect a little unemployment, but then I didn't know what I wanted to do. And my wife said, well, you've talked about someday going back to school and becoming a counselor, right? I actually fell in love with college, and then I enrolled full time at Minneapolis College doing their addiction counseling program. But there is where I really started learning about the whole nonprofit world and advocacy. And I got involved with the student life organizations in the college. And I tell anyone, I don't care how old you are, go check out student life at your college. It's a whole new world. It's really incredible. And I met a guy named Mark Hasse, and he said, he goes, I think you should go testify at the Capitol about drug sentencing reform. And I said, what? What are you talking about? And I had no idea any of that. That world was all foreign to me. And he goes, yeah, so there's this hearing coming up at the Capitol where they're looking to redo the felony drug sentencing in the state of Minnesota. And you have a pretty compelling story, being sentenced to 87 months as a first-time nonviolent drug user with no criminal history, right? You got the book thrown at you, and you were lucky because you were white. And I'm like, which I started to learn more about that. So I said, okay, I'll do it. And I wrote my 3-minute speech, and timed it and all. But the part that was the most what changed, what happened, I was at the college. They did this anti-stigma campaign in the Addiction Counseling Club. Everyone at the college in the addiction counseling program for a week straight wore a shirt that had some phrase or logo on it. So like crackhead or moral failure or whatever. Well, I got there, the campaign was over, but they had all these T-shirts, and there was 3 T-shirts left. One said moral failure, one said former inmate, and one said felon. And I'm like, can I just have these shirts? They're like, sure, take them. So I decided that day when I testified at the Capitol, I wore a shirt, that black shirt like this, that just said felon across it. And I'd never done anything like that. And some people got upset with me for because I wore a T-shirt to the Capitol to testify, and because I should have wore a suit, I guess, is what I didn't. Others thought it was perfect. You're there for felony drug sentencing reform, and you're a felon. Why would you not wear a shirt that says felon on it? It's perfect. Well, so it was a very emotional day. I'll never forget. And I was near tears the entire time, reading my 3-minute testimony, because it's my story, right? And the next day so in Minnesota, we have a newspaper called the Star and Tribune, which is our largest print newspaper in the state. And the next day on the front page, below the fold was my picture of me wearing my felon shirt at the state capitol testifying. And it says, felon testifies at drug sentencing reform hearing, Randy Anderson, blah, blah. And I was like, holy shit. I'm on the front page of this newspaper, right? And then I did it a few more times, the same, went and testified at a few more hearings for that. And we ended up passing the law. And because of that law, about 700 less people go to prison every year. They get offered services or treatment first before they get thrown to prison, but anyways,
let me ask a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's quite the start. That's quite the story. That's not called Randy's Law, is it? No, just kidding.
No.
But you mentioned something about, you just threw it in there, that the guy said, you got the book thrown at you, and you're white, and it could have been, you insinuated it would have been worse if you were a person of color.
Yeah.
So how does that play out? Talk to me a little bit about that.
As I started doing this work in recovery advocacy and criminal justice reform, I started to learn about the mass incarceration issue, mm-hmm. and the war on drugs, right? And I didn't know anything about this. And I remember being in prison though, and I did remember talking to guys that didn't look like me, that had very similar crimes to me, but they were sentenced to much longer times. And I didn't think about it then. It didn't equate to me then.
Wow.
Later, when I got out and I started to read about and do this type of work, I realized about how huge the racial disparities are in drug sentencing. That, I was sentenced, so that we call it the staircase, Phil. I mean, you're probably familiar, how many felony points do you have, and what level? So I was a level 32. I was way up on the staircase, right? And that range was 87 to 108 months. I got sentenced to the low end of that range. But guys that were similar crimes to mine that were Black or Indigenous or Native or other non-white people often got sentenced to the higher side of that. And learning now only because of the color of their skin, right? No other reasons, because that's how the system,
do you think the system, is that is it intentional by people, or is it just subliminal bias, or what do you think it is?
I think it's intentional. I do. I think I don't care what system it is, right? The healthcare system, the criminal justice system, the whatever system it is, they're all built under the umbrella of racism and white supremacy.
That's and that's what Don Koya says.
Yeah.
The system is perfectly designed for the results it's getting.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah. I mean, and although I got wrapped up in that war on drugs and system, it didn't impact me as severely or significantly as someone that doesn't look like me, right? My maximum sentence, they could have thrown the book at me, was 156 months.
Uh-huh.
And had I not been white, I probably would have got closer to the 156 months versus the 87 months I got.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had this first experience of going to the Capitol. I remember the first time I testified to, very similar, a lot of emotions. I
Yeah.
think I even played the white stereotypical role by wearing a suit and a tie.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do think I had an effect because I do remember saying, my name is Phil Valentine, I'm a person in recovery. And usually there's a lot of chaos and people are talking and they're up on, the senators and representatives are up there and but as soon
Yeah.
as I said that, it's kind of like everything paused and stopped and listened, and I went, whoa. So I just
Yeah.
went, because it was so new that there weren't people in recovery giving testimony, and it's still incredibly powerful. And
Yeah.
that led you to, well, where did it lead you? That first, I mean, seems like you're always testifying, always in front of people, always advocating.
Yeah. So it led me to where I wanted to be more involved. And I ended up joining an organization about the same time as that. It's called the Minnesota Second Chance Coalition. And at that time, it'd been around for about, not maybe 10 years, a decade, maybe not quite that long. It was the first organization that so my friend, the guy that asked me to testify, Mark Hossey, and a friend of his named Sarah Walker started that organization. Sarah was a defense attorney. Mark was another. They're both attorneys, and neither of them with criminal records, which is hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
But they believed that there needed to be a voice at the Capitol that spoke on behalf of people involved with the justice system. That was their whole idea to start this organization. And then they recruited people that actually were impacted. And that's how of course it was already going for quite a while, but I joined the board of that. They asked me to sit on the board of directors. Actually it was my second board appointment, but then I getting involved with like planning days at the Hill. So my first, I think 2015, 16 maybe, I can't remember exactly. I have to look back, but one of those 2 years I was the planning person for Day at the Hill to get all the people at the Capitol and the legislators and that was like, although a ton of work and wow, it was stressful, but the relationships I started to build from that in the community and then also at the Capitol, and then combine that with testifying and then helping pass a law. Like because there were dozens of testifiers. So I don't want to make it sound like Randy was the only one. But knowing that I had a part to play in that we passed a law that'll impact, hundreds of people every year. I was just like, I thought, holy moly. And then going to the rally at Washington in 2015, the Unite to Face Addiction, and I got a VIP pass, so I was in the back, the tent with all the people, and I just thought, God, this I'm at home. Like I found my people, like, right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and some of these people are doing amazing things on like Capitol Hill at a federal level too. Right. But then I realized too that the other part that I found out at my state capitol, there really was no recovery voice happening. And to this day, it's kind of the same thing, which makes me sad because I keep trying to recruit people to come join me. And I realize I have a unique, because I own my own business now, and I can my schedule. I don't have to go to a full-time job, right? That makes a huge difference, right? About advocacy, right? I think so. What I love about it most is like knowing that I can be part of. Was very cynical at one time. You imagine this, Phil. I used to believe that one person, one voice, one vote didn't make a difference. Like I'm nobody, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying I'm this big anybody now, but I proved myself completely wrong by doing like the work I do now around advocacy. So I call myself a citizen lobbyist because I don't get paid to do it, right? And I don't know if I ever want to get paid to do it, because I think once you start, like, if I collect money for this, I'll have to work an agenda for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Like, right. I feel like what I get to do now, I get to do. And for me, like the work I love to do the most is the work that doesn't pay any bills, but it's the legislative policy, advocacy, lobbying work that is
Okay. Well,
most
Yeah, let me ask you a question too.
Yeah.
So we know that in the Recovery Coach Academy, we have one role of a recovery coach is to be an advocate.
Yeah.
But talk about how you got involved with CCAR and the Recovery Coach Academy, and where that has led into the development
Yeah.
of Bold North Recovery.
Yeah. I was serving as the overdose prevention manager for an organization called the Steve Rumler Hope Network, which is our naloxone 911 organization in Minnesota. And imagine this. The executive director and I didn't get along at a lot of times. And I quit 9:30 one night with an email saying effective immediately, which is a really crappy thing to do to someone. And I look back now and I have some regrets, but it was just, things happened. But I didn't know what I was going to do after I quit. I always tell people I'm probably a hard person to manage. Like I wouldn't want to manage me like, cause I'm sometimes unconventional. I say things that people don't want to hear. I get, I'm loud. I don't accept statements like, but that's the way we've always done it. Like, I'm not okay with that. So anyways, I quit my job and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I knew I didn't really want to go back to counseling at that point. And I started to learn more about peer recovery services and recovery coaching. And I knew Jesse Heffernan now for a year or two at this point, and he was running his little thing called Helios in Appleton. And I learned anyways, I just decided like I want a recovery focused small business. And I know I'm not trying to eat up all the time, but I was driving. My last duty for that job was to deliver 4 Narcan kits to a high school that I had just spent a year and a half implementing the first Narcan program in the state of Minnesota in a high school. And I had to deliver these 4 kits. That was my last duty. The next morning, well, it's Minnesota and it's February, and guess what? We had a snowstorm. Not only a snowstorm, we had a blizzard. And so it took me 5.5 hours to drive to White Bear Lake, which is normally about a 30-minute drive. And while I was driving, I changed my Facebook status before I left the house to left my old job, and my phone at about 7:30, 8 o'clock blew up. Emails, text messages, phone calls. Everybody's like, what happened? Why did you quit? Da, da, da. And then my friend who works for the Great Lakes Technology Transfer Center, the ATTC, called me and said, hey, if you had a small business, I have contract work for you. I'm like, what does that mean? Well, she goes, like, you could get paid to do some of the trainings like the overdose training, you're already doing this and that. I'm like, really? Well, I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm taking 2 weeks off and I'm going to write a business plan and I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this the right way. Well, my mind started racing as I'm in this car for 5.5 hours. And I thought, if I did have a company, what would the name be? And of course, then I started throwing around names like Bold and North and Recovery, and it all came together. And I got home that day after driving forever, and I went on the Minnesota Secretary of State website to get my name. Like Bold North Recovery I was going to file it, pay the money, and that was my business. Didn't know what I was going to do yet, but that was my business. And I got on the website, and it's funny because somebody already had the name Bold North Recovery in Minnesota, and it was a towing company. And I get it. I used to drive tow truck, so they recover vehicles, right? So anyways, I was pretty mad, and my wife like, what's wrong? And somebody has my name, and she goes, well, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. She's the one that said, you're just going to be like a consultant, right? I said, I guess. So she's just like, so just put Bold North Recovery and Consulting just to get your name filed and get it done with. So I did. Of course, everything now I kind of try to keep short, but then I started talking to Jesse more, and I said, I wanted to work with another local organization that was already training peers here for our state. And they weren't interested in like expanding or hiring anyone. And it was really kind of shocking to me because I thought, why would you not want to do more of this? Mm-hmm. Anyways, they were not interested. So I said, fine, I'll go on my own. So I started researching, and I came across CCAR. Your curriculum with your RCA and your ethics were already met the approval for the state of Minnesota without any extra work. Mm-hmm. And so I said, well, how do I become a trainer? And that started my journey with CCAR, and it was great. I mean, it was just awesome. If it hadn't been for CCAR, I don't think Bold North Recovery would be here today because of you guys. And that year was such, I mean, I'm not going to lie, like Bold North Recovery, I was able to take some of that money and buy marketing material and buy like things that I never could afford before because of all the contracting I did for you guys. So for me, that's why every chance I get when I can, I show up for CCAR.
I appreciate
that's
that.
just
Well, we appreciate you as well. So what does Bold North Recovery do today?
Hey, it's training, education, and workforce development.
Sounds good. As we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like us to know?
Yeah, I guess it's Recovery Month. Just starting off, and I wish if I had a magic wand. We say this all the time. If you had a wand and one wish, what would it be? I wish more people, and that's why I think I love doing my advocacy training so much. I wish more people in recovery would get involved politically. The only way we're going to change this thing and start to stop 110,000 people from dying every year is to have people like us at every table.
Yeah.
And I said this in my last testimony last year. It's not just so I'm to the point where now I don't think we need to be at their table anymore. I think we need to build our own table and they can join us.
Yeah, sounds familiar. I agree.
Yeah. So that's what I said. I said that in a testimony at the Capitol. And a senator came up to me after. She goes, Randy, that last line of your testimony was very powerful about building your own table and you can come join us. I said, that's what it has to be. I said, that's the only way this is going to work. I said, because, guys like you and John Chinholzer, who I think are just really, help move recovery in this world, it's just the incredible work you guys have done. And we just need a lot more people like us, like you.
Agree.
We just don't have enough. And we need to be at every table, and then our own table besides, but yeah.
Yeah. Let's build a recovery system that other systems respond to us instead of the other way around.
Right.
I agree.
Exactly.
Randy, I thoroughly admire your work and appreciate your advocacy so much. I know your dad didn't tell you this, but I'm really proud of you.
Oh, thanks,
You're an
Bill.
amazing human being.
Thanks.
Have a great day and continue.
Thanks, Phil. I'll see you soon, I'm sure.
I'm sure. Right. Take
All
care.
right. Yep. Bye.
Bye.
Are you ready to make a difference in the lives of others? If so, then you should consider becoming a recovery coach. Recovery coaches are trained to help people in recovery, seeking recovery, or struggling with addiction. They provide support, guidance, and resources to help people on their recovery journey. CCAR Training is the leading provider of recovery coach training programs. Our programs are designed to teach you the skills and knowledge, what we call the science, while giving you an understanding of your own art needed to be a successful recovery coach. We offer a variety of training options, most offered online. If you're interested in becoming a recovery coach or just learning more, I encourage you to visit our website or contact us today. We would be happy to answer any questions you have and help you get started on your journey to becoming a recovery coach. We hope you'll visit us at www.addictionrecoverytraining.org to learn more.